Welcome, everyone. Excited for yet another addition to this webinar series. This month, we're going to be talking about sales, the sales process, structuring sales in a law firm, different variety of ways that you can have non-attorney salespeople sell for you. And what does that look like? And commission structure and salary, and a variety of ways that you can grow your law practice without the icky sort of traditional used carman sleazy sales vibes that so many people tend to think or believe, and using it in a more positive light, an uplifting light that frames it in a way that helps you grow the practice without you having to do all of the lever cranking and being on the phone or being in all of the meetings. So a lot to cover in this session today, and excited to jump into it. We have Arjan back again. We're doing this, the two of us, for the next, we've committed to a full year for it. So we'll be at this for quite a while longer. Excited that you're all with us. If you don't know, this is the first one that you're turning into. Arjan Robbins is the founder of How to Manage a Small Law Firm. They are the CEO, COO, CMO for over 600 law firms across the U.S. And if you don't know much about Daniel's Head writes more than 8,700 law firms insurance across the U.S. as well. So together, there's a variety of different viewpoints and angles with which the perspective will be unique and different from an operational standpoint, from a risk mitigation standpoint, and really just taking things to the next level across the board with things that actually work. So with that said, Arjan, excited to do it again, buddy. Ready for another month, and let's rock and roll.
Let's rock and roll. I'm backstage at the Ritz-Carlton in Coconut Grove. We're running an event, and the room that I was supposed to use wasn't available at the last minute, so we're making it work.
All good. This is what happens. The
glamorous life, right? Yeah. Backstage.
We make do. I love it. We make do with what we got when we got it. So
that's right. That's an important mindset to have when it comes to sales.
Well, it is, and I think that so many people end up, and you can use it as a frame to get into the sales conversation, that so many people can easily get derailed when something small does not go their way, and that becomes like the sand in their shoe that becomes a pebble in their shoe, becomes a rock in their shoe, whatever it is. It just sort of ends up being a bigger and bigger problem that is not really that big of a deal. So I think that it's a good sort of reference to as we jump into the conversation. So that said, is there anything that you want to sort of lead with on the topic of sales at a high level? And yes, maybe that's just the idea of sales is not sleazy, and starting there.
So sales is a service. You got to really, truly wrap your head around and come at it from the place of sales as a service. I really, truly, sincerely believe that sales is a service, and it's one of the most thoughtful, caring, considerate, loving acts you can do in a professional setting is to help a person think through and get clarity as to where they are now in their situation, think through and get clarity about how their current situation might be affecting their life in ways they might not have considered or thought about or ever really looked at, think through and consider where they want to be in their life. Where are you now and where do you want to be in your life? And, if you don't do anything different about the situation you're in, where are you likely to wind up if you don't make any changes, right? I've had probably thousands at this point of sales calls myself. And between the people I've helped, we're talking into the tens of thousands. And it is really surprising and disappointing as when you discover how few human beings have ever had the experience of another person caring enough about them to really sit down and say, let me help you think through your current situation. Let me help you find clarity. Let me help you understand where you're at. Let me help you think through how that's really, truly affecting you so you can make an empowered, informed decision about whether or not and how motivated you might be to change and make things different. And not only that, but let me help you think through courageously where you want to be in the future. Let me help you imagine. Let me help you dream. Let me help you plan. Let me help you anticipate. Let me help you think about how you might want your life to be in the future. And what needs to change to go from where you are now to where you want to be. And the really courageous act, the most courageous act of all, is helping a person think through what is likely to happen if they don't make any changes, right? Because it's easy to have the conversation about, oh, I'm going to be rich and famous and happy and fit and tall and good looking. And all that stuff's easy. That's fun, rah, rah, rah. The hard part is really helping a person think through, if you don't make changes to the way you're living now, where do you think you're realistically going to wind up in the future, right? And if where you are right now is you're happy and you're content and you're satisfied and everything is great, well then terrific. That's wonderful. You don't want to be in a different place in the future. But if where you are right now is dissatisfying, if it's scary, if it's uncomfortable, if it's causing you stress, if you don't like where you are right now, and if you don't make any changes, you're likely to wind up in a worse place. Well, then the thoughtful, the caring, the considerate, I just think it's a humane thing to do to help a person make a decision to change the trajectory to wind up in a better place. That is the essence of sales. That's what sales is actually all about. It's helping a person think through where they are now versus where they want to be versus where they don't want to be, and helping them really see the truth of their situation. You're not doing anything to them. You're doing this for them. You're turning the light on for them so they can see the truth of their situation, and then helping them weigh their options and weigh their choices.
So with that said, I think that a lot of attorneys, I think that's a good frame to usually, start the mental shift away from sales being sleazy, that it is an act of service. But if we take that to the, solo attorney or small law firm attorney, there's a couple individuals in the practice. If I get it, I understand that I need to serve people. I understand that this is the mechanism with which my law firm can grow, but also all good. But also with the mechanism that would allow my, the practice to, serve people and grow, and sales is that mechanism. So with that in mind, even if someone says, okay, I got to do this, but I don't like to do this, what are some of the more efficient sales structures that you have seen other people use or recommend in a small law firm? And maybe that is the solo attorney just having a pre-call that's vetted beforehand so that they get on a call that's warmed up more. Maybe it's having a non-attorney salesperson. Anything that tends to set certain people up for more success if this is not something that they love.
Well, first off, who doesn't love helping other people, right? The reason that most people became lawyers, the reason that most people have their own law firm, is because you genuinely like helping other people find clarity in their life and make a better life for themselves. And I hate to sound like a broken record on this point, but before we get into any of the techniques, it's so liberating to just shift your mindset and really learn to think of sales as something you're doing for another person. When you come at it from that perspective, then all the techniques that I can share with you and all the techniques that I can give you and all the tips and the tools and the resources and all that stuff it'll help you 10 times more. But if you keep hanging on to this idea that sales is something you're doing to another person, then, if you feel like you're doing something to another person, Dre, and I give you a tool that helps you do something to more people, every time you touch that tool, it's going to feel bad. You're not going to want to do it. But when you really truly understand that sales is something you do for a person, and I give you a tool that helps you do something for other people, then every time you touch that tool, it makes you feel good. And sales really truly should be very gratifying when you're coming at it from this point of view. Let's talk about Daniel's head for a second, okay? The basic sales conversation between a Daniel's head insurance agent and the owner of a law firm is, where are you now? Well, where I am now is I'm at risk. My family is at risk. Everything I've worked for is at risk. My reputation is at risk. My business is at risk. I'm currently at risk. Okay, and how does that risk affect you financially? How does that risk affect you personally? How does that risk affect you professionally? Probably there's no one else in the owner of the law firm's entire life who has taken the time, who cares enough, who's educated enough, who has enough experience to help them think through how that risk of being sued for malpractice action, warranted or otherwise, how that might really make them feel, right? Well, it makes me feel vulnerable. It makes me feel scared. It makes me feel nervous. It makes me feel anxious. It makes me feel like I'm not being a responsible parent for my children. It makes me feel like I'm not being a responsible employer for my staff. It makes me feel hesitant to really fully throw myself into my work. Okay. And how does that make you feel? And you kind of dig into how it really affects you to be in a situation where you don't have any insurance, or you don't have the right kind of insurance, you don't have enough insurance, right? It's a bad feeling, right? And then, okay, where would you like to be in the future? If you woke up in the future, how would you like to feel? Well, I'd like to feel more confident. I'd like to feel more secure. I'd like to feel more sure of myself. I'd like to have the confidence to know that if something were to happen in my business and I were to be sued for a malpractice action, warranted or otherwise, I'd like to have the confidence to know that my family's future would not be at jeopardy. I'd like to have the confidence to know that I won't have to fire my whole staff. I'd like to know that it won't be totally devastating to my business. I'd like to know that my reputation won't be flushed down the toilet. I'd like to know that I'll have a malpractice insurance agency that has the experience dealing with these kinds of things, that will hire a defense counsel for me so that I can have someone on my side protecting me who knows what they're doing. I'd like to be in this better place. Okay, and if you don't make any changes to where you are right now, which is scared, vulnerable, insecure, don't feel responsible, don't feel like you're practicing what you preach, don't feel like you're in complete integrity with the advice you give to your clients every day, probably. If you don't make any changes, where do you think you're likely to wind up in the future, a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now? And let's assume you never get sued for malpractice ever in your entire life. How do you want to feel? Well, what I don't want to do is I don't want to wake up a year from now. I don't want to wake up 2 years from now. I don't want to wake up 3 years from now still feeling nervous. I don't want to still be making decisions playing a defensive game, right? This is the conversation. There's no manipulation. There's no trickery. There's no force. There's nothing sleazy about this conversation. It's just helping a person think through where they are now, where they want to be, and where they don't want to be. It's a really caring, thoughtful, consultative kind of conversation. I'm just using malpractice insurance as an example, but you can apply this to any conversation that a professional has with a prospective new client to help them think through where they are now, where they want to be, where they don't want to be, and why this matters to you. I don't know if I answered your question or if I went sideways. I apologize. I had to do
it was a good sort of detour, I think, to give it more structure around the framework of the mindset around sales as a whole. I mean, you're exactly right. The consultative process inside of Daniel's head is very much that. You have a 700% increase in malpractice claims over $1 million, according to the ABA, over the last 10 years. Things are going in the wrong direction when it comes to that. And what would you put at jeopardy your last 3, 5, 10, 20 years of building something to lose it over something frivolous?
And one more thing, and I'm not trying to be like a shill for Daniel's head, but I mean, this is the sales conversation, right? You don't have to play scare tactics, and you don't have to say, what are you going to lose? And oh my God, could you imagine? No. How about if we say you'll probably never be sued for malpractice in your career, right? Because statistically speaking, you probably won't, right? The question is, do you want to go through life looking in a mirror, knowing that you are following your own advice? Do you want to look in a mirror knowing you've protected your family? Do you want to go through life feeling the confidence of knowing that you've got a good malpractice insurance policy protecting you, even if you never need it, right? And what does that frame of mind do to all of the decisions you make in every part of your life, not just the practice of law, right? It's like the estate planning attorney who doesn't have an estate plan, right? How are you I mean, you've got to be in integrity with your own advice, and the advice that is true. I mean, every lawyer, every law firm gives clients advice that is consistent with the conclusion of be responsible, make decisions today you'll be proud of a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, right? Protect yourself just in case. Do things that you can look in the mirror and feel good about the person you're looking at. This is true of criminal defense firms, family law firms, immigration firms, bankruptcy firms, litigation firms, transactional firms, you name it. It's the same conversation. This is the point that I'm trying to make, is that having a sales conversation, it's just helping another person think through where they are now and where they want to be versus where they don't want to be, and making a decision today that they'll be proud of in the future. And then we could talk about marketing, we can talk about technique, and we could talk about whether you can have a non-attorney salesperson having this conversation and all that technical stuff. But It's so important that you get the foundation right, because the rest of it won't matter if you don't get the foundation right. And by the way, what I've repeated again and again and again, just even in this conversation with you, Dre, I personally have sold tens of millions of dollars of professional services, tens of millions of dollars of professional services, having this very caring, considerate, authentic, genuine, curious, thoughtful, simple conversation. And I stutter and I say the wrong thing all the time. And, I end up having to have conversations, like this. It's just where are you coming from in this conversation?
Well, there's a level of authenticity is really, I think, what it comes down to, of who you are and the general aspect of service at the core. And then there's a facade or whatever polish that some people have and other people don't care about. I think you and I are in that frame of mind. Like the value that you're sharing right now is significantly more than the backstage people walking by at the Ritz-Carlton at your current event. Like, it just doesn't really matter. And I think it's that sort of frame of mind when it comes to sales or service that I think really is ultimately what it boils down to.
Yeah, I'd love to pretend like I planned to be backstage to make this point, but the truth is I didn't. The room that I was supposed to use just wasn't available at the last minute. But it kind of illustrates the point, right? Because you probably, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, or maybe thousands of people, are going to watch this, and they're paying attention to the value of the lesson. They're paying attention to the message. Now, are there people who are dismissing the message, who aren't hearing what I'm saying because, oh my God, he's not wearing a suit and tie. Oh my God, he didn't shave. Oh my God, look, he's backstage at a hotel. Yeah, but most people, the kinds of people you probably want to do business with, are the kind of people who are looking for form over substance. And that's why the fancy website and the slick sales presentation and all that kind of stuff, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. If you're coming from the right place and you're using an approach that creates structure and organization around this basic conversation, you or even a non-attorney salesperson can sell millions and millions and millions of dollars of professional services, assuming, of course, you've got marketing that brings you the prospects in the first place.
Yep. So I think that's a good sort of segue to get into like the structure. A lot of effective sales conversations have structure. We're not going down this rabbit hole. We're not going down that rabbit hole. We're not get like in endless whatever loops that are open loops that nothing gets closed, and you get to the end of your hour-long conversation or whatever it is, and there's nothing to like move forward off of because nothing actually had structure. So when it comes to a structured sales conversation, consultative sales conversation, what are some of the structures that or frameworks, if you will, whatever you wanted to define it as, that tend to work well when it comes to selling legal services?
Right. So the first thing is to understand you have to be using a professional conversation, not a social conversation, right? There's social conversations, which are great for social situations. And then there are professional conversations that are inappropriate for most social situations. Yeah. And social conversations are ineffective in most professional situations. So you are a avid bicyclist. Yes.
Yeah.
That's the word, bicyclist or cyclist?
Cyclist. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. You probably wouldn't just roll down to the local bike shop and pick up a Huffy and take it home. You certainly wouldn't expect to win a race or compete effectively using a consumer grade bicycle. You need a professional grade bicycle to compete in a professional bicycle race. Yes?
Correct.
A member of my team gave a lesson on sales recently, and she used an example of a hairdryer, and she showed the hairdryer that she uses at home, and then she showed the hairdryer that a professional hairdresser uses. Right? If you take the hairdryer that you use at home, and you give it to a professional hairdresser, they're going to burn that thing out in a week or two. Right? It's just a completely different. There's social conversations and there are professional conversations. And the biggest mistake the biggest technical mistake, if you will, the biggest mistake is coming at sales from the wrong mindset. The next biggest mistake is people try to use social conversations in a professional setting. All right. A professional conversation it's thoughtful, it's caring, it's considerate, but there's an agenda, there's a point to it all, and it's more clinical, right? We're not just here shooting the breeze. How you doing? How's the weather? What's your favorite game? What do you like on sports? Oh, and by the way, maybe we'll get around to talking about the most important problem in your entire life. No, that's a social conversation. A professional conversation is, look, you came here because you have a problem, and I respect you, and I respect your time, and I value your time, and we're not going to waste your time making small talk. We're going to talk about what we need to do to help you figure out where you are now, help you figure out where you want to be, help you figure out where you want to not be, and then figure out if there might be some way for us to help you make a better future for yourself or not. That's what we're here to talk about. Let's set an agenda. Let's agree on the agenda and follow the agenda. And it actually makes the prospective new client much more comfortable when you present the conversation in a professional way like that. What's really uncomfortable for the prospective new client, and it's really uncomfortable for the lawyer or the salesperson, is when you try to take this social friendly conversation and somehow kind of maneuver it into a sales conversation. It just doesn't work. I mean, it works. It's just really weird and awkward and ineffective.
Yeah. So structure up front, set the agenda, and not a personal conversation in a professional setting along those lines.
All right. So you want to hear the structure. Here's the structure, right? Step one, you show up for the sales call, whether it's by phone, by Zoom, in person, whatever. And the first thing you do is you confirm the time. Thanks for coming in. We originally had this scheduled for an hour. Does an hour still work for you? Or 30 minutes or 20 minutes or 37, whatever the time is. You confirm the time. You got to confirm the time first. Why? Because what happens if your call was originally scheduled for an hour and now they show up and you say, hey, we originally had this call scheduled for an hour. Does an hour still work for you? And they say, you know what? It doesn't. It no longer works for me. Why not? Well, because my house burned down last night. Okay, well, you probably don't want to have a conversation about your estate plan when your house burned down yesterday, let's change the agenda and talk about how to help you with the new problem du jour, which is your insurance policy. Is your family safe? Where are you staying? Are your animals safe? Do you have all your papers? Forget about your estate plan. We'll talk about your estate plan later. Let's talk about what we just discovered is your biggest problem, because I took the time to confirm. I stopped and confirmed the time. Or, hey, when we schedule this appointment for an hour, we schedule for an hour, does that still work for you? Oh, no, it doesn't work for me anymore. Why not? Well, something came up and now I only have 20 minutes, but let's talk for 20 minutes. Hold on a second. This isn't I'm not going to try to cram a gallon into a quart. Let's just reschedule. I understand. Things happen, life comes up, things change. We'll reschedule. I'm not desperate. I want to be of service to you, but I can't be of service to you if we don't have enough time to have a real meaningful conversation. We'll just reschedule. Anyway, you got to confirm the time. And then there's some other, call it mindset, technique kind of reasons you confirm the time. Why? Because that way you can pace yourself. They know that they're not locked in there for an hour and they're constantly looking out, looking for if they know that the call is for an hour, they're not looking for the door. And, you should start shifting the conversation into what are we going to do going forward around halfway through. So if the appointment is scheduled for an hour, at about 30 minutes, you should probably start switching the conversation to, okay, based on all that, what are we going to do next? You want to do that at about 30 minutes. So you've got 30 minutes to resolve everything. If you wait to the last 5 minutes, then they're going to throw one objection your way and they're out the door, and you're not going to make the sale. So if it's scheduled for an hour, at 30 minutes, it's scheduled for half hour at 15 minutes, it's scheduled for 10 minutes at 5 minutes. But about halfway into the scheduled appointment is when you probably want to start thinking about shifting the conversation to making a plan for what comes next.
I think
and then you propose an agenda. Confirm the time, then propose an agenda. Confirm the time and then assure them that everything will be kept confidential.
Yeah. Okay. And so at the 30-minute mark, where you're shifting from learning about them and the problems to starting to diagnose what the potential future, remediations may be, or solutions, or whatever it may be.
Right.
I think that's a very
you start looking at options. That's basically what you're doing. At about halfway mark, you're saying, now let's look at some of the options and make a decision together.
So I think that part tends to come naturally to a lot of attorneys, because they just go into.
It doesn't. No, it doesn't.
Interesting, because I would say a lot of conversations we've had when it comes to just here you had a problem, let's explore what the solution looks like. Comes easy. I think asking for the sale or the actual confirmation of the next step would be the bigger issue. So if from what you see, it's an issue of the solution side of things, where are people getting caught there?
Well, first of all, what most attorneys default to is education mode. Let me tell you all about how the sausages get made. Let me tell you about the law. Let me tell you about the rules. Let me tell you about the regulations. Let me tell you about all of this technical stuff that the client doesn't really need to know about, and usually doesn't want to know about either, right? And then the lawyer isn't sharing options. Usually what lawyers are doing is they're trying to jam solutions down the client's throat, right? So I have now gotten an A+ on my law school exam. I spotted the issues, I identified the law, and I am now prescribing and telling you this is what we need to do about it. And the client is like, whoa, I'm a person here, right? I'm not a case. I'm not an exam. I'm a human being who has feelings, who has a life that's being affected by this situation. I didn't come to this law firm because I had a legal problem. I came to this law firm because I had a personal problem that was being caused by my legal problem or being exacerbated by my legal problem. And until you can understand what my personal problem is and show me my different options, I'm not buying anything from you. most lawyers are not really taking enough time, investing enough time, demonstrating enough care and concern for their prospective client as a human being to understand how the problem is affecting the prospective new client in terms of the client's time, in terms of the client's money, in terms of the client's reputation. They make a lot of assumptions and they jump over a lot of this discussion and investigation because they're treating it like a law school exam of spot the issue, cite the law, tell them what to do about it. That's not a sale.
No. So
that's not a caring thing to do to a person.
So if we're shifting at the half-hour mark to go into more of the question, like we've basically established what we would refer to it as the gap. In the first half hour, the gap has been, discovered. They're here and they want to have this end result, whether that's getting rid of the legal issue, a personal issue, whatever it is. The gap has been created. And so once the gap has been discovered, figuring out what solutions are to close that gap to get them to that end result. And so usually, we would say it would be done by conversation, just asking the question around what would it mean? What would it look like? Future pacing would be a way to describe some of it in a variety of aspects. So
that's all discovering the gap. At about a half hour, you're saying, okay, based on what you've shared with me, and based on my understanding of your situation, let's talk about, would you like to talk about some options for how we might be able to make things better? What's the person going to say? No? Most people are going to say yes. But yes, I would not. Okay, so let's talk about your options. And I know this is counterintuitive, and I know this is against conventional wisdom, but I don't think you're going to meet many people who have sold more professional services than me. And more importantly, I don't think you're going to meet anyone who's taught more lawyers how to sell more tens and probably into the hundreds of millions of dollars of professional services. And I'm telling you, every client has these two options that no one wants to talk about, right? One, you could do nothing. That is an option. You've got to acknowledge that option. You've got to demonstrate the respect for the prospective client to acknowledge they have the option of doing nothing. Is that an option you want to seriously consider here today? Now, if you've done a good job earlier of really understanding the problem and how the problem is affecting them and helping them think through how the problem is likely to affect them in the future, no, I don't want to do anything about this problem is not usually going to be what you hear. It's option one, though, but it is an option, right? Throw that one away. Second option is you could probably figure out how to do this yourself. You seem like an intelligent person. I can share some books with you. I can share some resources with you. I can share some free reports with you. You could figure out how to do this yourself. Is that something you want to seriously consider today? Now, again, if you've done a good job of helping them think through how the problem is affecting them today in terms of their time and their money and their reputation, and you've done a good job of helping them think through and visualize where they want to be in the future and where they don't want to wind up in the future, most people are not going to say, yes, I want to seriously try to do this myself, right? Most people are coming to law firms with complicated problems that call for complex solutions. And if you've done a good job of helping them think it all through, they're not going to say, yes, I want to do it myself. And you know what? If they say, you know what? I do want to do it myself. Okay, great. Here's the first video you should watch. Here's a book you should read. Here's a free report that I wrote that you should look at. Here's a checklist to follow. Here's a template you can use. And you know what? Let's make a plan for you're going to read all this stuff and have it all digested in 2 weeks. And then we'll check back and you can tell me what you're going to do with it. And then you can start doing the work and bring it back to me and I'll review it for you for free. And we'll see if you're on the right. I mean, are you understanding what I'm saying? It's not that simple. But you do have to acknowledge that the person does have the option of doing it themselves, right? And then the third option is, do you want to, and then you offer a solution, right? Large, medium, small. You give them some options. There's usually more than one option. Help them think through the pros and the cons of all the different options. And then the final option is, do you want to shop around? Do you want to go talk to a bunch of other lawyers? And I like bringing that up because I like resolving it right then and there before we go on to the next part of the conversation, which is, let's make a decision now. You don't say, if you don't deal with that head on, do you want to go shop around? They're going to bring that back up on you later, and it doesn't do them any good, and it certainly doesn't do you any good.
And it also brings up, and you're sort of quashing future objections right there on the spot, or at least the opportunity for future objections, because like, I may want to go shop around. Or there's a variety of just, you're also probably shortening that sales cycle more than anything.
I take a little issue with the term quashing objections because that makes it feel adversarial. I'd rather say
definitely not adversarial, but everyone, like, I should say, most individuals will have objections or questions when it comes to any particular service that they're signing up for, professional service, legal service, any of those things. And I think that a good salesperson needs to be able to handle those objections in a way that best serves the individual. Now, some objections are completely warranted.
Let me suggest a different term that I think would bring us into complete alignment here.
Do it.
All right. And it'll help everyone watching this feel better about the whole process. If I promise you, everyone, if you're watching this, if you'll stop using the term objection and use the term concern. People have concerns, right? I want to buy this thing. I want to make my life better, but I have concerns. I have concerns about whether it's really going to work. I have concerns about whether I'm going to get my money's worth. I have concerns about whether you're going to do everything you say you're going to do, right? I have concerns, and I want you to help me address my concerns so I feel comfortable, as opposed to an objection. An objection sets up this kind of a relationship. But if you're really there helping a person from a place of care and concern and thoughtfulness and truly coming from a place of love, I want to know all of your concerns so I can help you make a more confident decision. I'm not here to overcome your objections. You get my point?
Yes.
Well, this is exactly why lawyers hate selling. Lawyers hate selling because they're taught to overcome objections. And the whole conversation with the person who you're supposed to have this caring, thoughtful, considerate, intimate, trusting relationship with becomes confrontational because I'm going to object and I'm going to overcome your objection. No. That's not what this relationship is. This is a relationship where I'm going to help you think through your situation because I care about you. And I help you care about you, and I care about your future. And I'm going to help you think through all of your concerns. It changes the whole nature of the relationship, not only on the sale, but later in the relationship with the client. It will ultimately trigger more cooperative clients, more collaborative clients, clients who will refer more business to you in the future, more loyal clients.
I love it. I love the word, changing concerns to objections. It's a good shift. What I was getting at is, I'm sure we've all had those clients that have become a time suck or not appreciated us or drag us along or any of those sort of, things that they're just not the right fit.
Right.
And so part of the nature of, that I was told early on in sales, like, he who needs it least wins, coming from a position of, you're serving. I'm not begging you. I'm not, I don't need this. I want to genuinely serve you. He who needs it least wins. I want to generally act of service. And I think that by framing even the simple thing up front by, you have three options, really. It's, you can do nothing. And that's a completely, valid frame to take, or you can do this and I'll give you everything that you need. I think that some of those people may just take a little while to, make up their mind that they might actually be like, I can't do this on my own. But it probably also eliminates a certain amount of the riffraff of the bad or not right fit client that may try to drive the relationship to a certain degree if it's not at least clearly identified from the outset of that, consultative sales conversation.
Well, now we're getting into a conversation that we had when we were talking about marketing, right? Great marketing protects us from bad prospective new clients, right? Because when you have a reliable marketing machine that automatically bringing you prospective new clients, 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 reliably, consistently, predictably, when you meet that prospect who is uncooperative or unreasonable, or they're trying to disrespect your own boundaries, you could say respectfully, no, these are my boundaries, these are my rules, this is how I do business, and I'm not going to compromise my integrity, and I'm not going to compromise myself because I'm not desperate. And I don't think of it as a win-lose thing. I think of it as look, we're here in service. This is a service business, right? We've chosen a career in service. And when you choose a career in service, you have to accept that puts you in a position to serve the needs and to solve the problems and to make other people's lives better. That doesn't mean you have to take abuse. You chose a career of service. You didn't choose a career of I had another word in my mind that was going to be such a perfect little thing. You chose a career of service. You didn't choose a career of suffering abuse. And this is very important that you have good marketing to also protect your staff.
Yeah, 100%. Because we all know how some of those difficult clients can absolutely take a drain on the staff, and they're worth protecting, which we'll talk a lot more about some of these future episodes and things.
Yeah, your staff is the most valuable asset you have in your business. And if you're not protecting them, then that is just like wasting money, earning money.
100%. One of the things I think we touched on briefly earlier that I think is worth spending a little bit of time on for the time that we have left is going to be, I always thought that I had to sell it. I went to law school. I passed the bar. It's my name on the door. And it should be me in that conference room selling the services because, by God, this is what I did all of these things for. And I want to destroy that fallacy while we're together.
Yeah. So first off, let's start off with bar rules, right? I have been in the world of small law firm management since August 24th, 1999. That was the day that I reported for duty as a small law firm management advisor with the Florida Bar's Law Office Management Assistance Service. I have worked with tens of thousands of solo and small law firms all over the country. I've also, for 3 years, worked with big law firms. I was on the national CLE speaking tour. Microsoft, LexisNexis, LawPay, they sponsored me to go on a national speaking tour. I went all over the country doing a CLE talk on behalf of those companies. And I have a bounty. It's a standing bounty. If anyone watching this wants to claim the bounty, please get in touch with me. I will gladly pay you the bounty. It's $1,000. I'll send you $1,000 if you can find me any bar rules from any state, any county, any bar rules that say you need to be a licensed attorney to sell legal services. I've been putting this bounty out there for more than 10 years in front of tens of thousands of lawyers, some of whom, let's just say, would have liked to have found a way to shoot me down in front of an audience of their peers at a CLE speech, right? And no one has ever been able to claim this bounty. No one's even tried. Why? Because I've searched everywhere I can find, and I can't find anywhere any bar rules that say anything that you have to be a lawyer to sell legal services. Now, bar rules say you have to be a lawyer to perform legal services. That's true. But you don't have to be a lawyer to sell legal services. Next point, big law firms. Look at the AmLaw 200, the 200 biggest law firms in the country. All right, the 200th biggest law firm in the country, Dre. By the way, do you know how much that law firm grossed last year?
No idea.
About $250 million.
Every 250 million helps.
I'm sorry?
Every 250 million helps.
Yeah, but here's the interesting thing. That's the 200th largest law firm. The largest law firm in the country gross over $2 billion. So think about the owner of the $250 million law firm talking to the owner of the $2 billion law firm. And now think about the owner of the $250 million law firm talking to the owner of the $25 million law firm. And think about the owner of the $25 million law firm talking to the owner of the $2.5 million law firm. And now think about the owner of the $2.5 million law firm talking to the owner of the $250,000 law firm, and get your ego in check. Anyway, that's aside, it's a whole different conversation. The point I'm making is most of, if not all of the biggest law firms in the country, almost all of them have non-attorney salespeople. All right? This is how it's done in well-run, well-managed professional service firms. You have a non-attorney salesperson. Why? Because you don't need to be a licensed attorney to have a thoughtful, caring, considerate, loving conversation with a person about where they are right now. How is the situation affecting you today in terms of your time?
Oh. Did we lose you? Give it one more second. We might have lost him. Yeah. Okay. So one of the things that I will touch on while we wait for Arjan to reconnect along this, because we've had many conversations about the non-attorney salespeople in the practice, is giving them an actual framework, like we discussed earlier. Oh, there you go. You back?
Hey, Dre, was that me or you that cut out?
I believe it was you.
All right, well, I'm back. What's the last thing you heard me say?
The getting your ego in check was the last sort of complete point. And then sort of diverting there slightly. I was just going to elaborate on something else, but feel free, carry on.
Okay. What I was talking about, I thought I was still on before I got cut off. I was saying the biggest law firms in the country all have non-attorney salespeople. Did you hear me talking about that?
Yep.
And did you hear me talking about how you don't have to be a licensed attorney to have a conversation about where you are right now and where you want to be and how it's affecting you? Did you hear that?
Yeah.
Okay, so that was basically the gist of it.
You were just doing some explaining of it a little bit more in depth.
Yeah. So you don't have to be a licensed attorney to have this conversation, right? You have to be a thoughtful, caring, considerate person who knows how to bring a professional grade conversation to a professional grade setting, set an agenda, and have the courage to have a conversation about things that most people are quote unquote too polite to talk about. Oh, I was too polite to tell you that you had a big piece of broccoli stuck in your teeth, so I let you walk out and with a piece of broccoli in your teeth. That's not polite. That's rude. It's rude and inconsiderate to let a person walk into your office with a problem, see how the problem is probably affecting them, and then not actually help them think it all the way through and offer them a solution. That's not a caring, considerate, thoughtful thing to do to a person.
No. So you've probably blown some minds just by the simple idea of, I could have someone in my practice not sell the services.
We manage over 600 of some of the fastest growing, and some of them are probably some of the most profitable small law firms you could ever imagine, in every different practice area, all over the country, and even in a few other countries. And I would say about probably a third to a half of our members have non-attorney salespeople meeting with prospective new clients. And here's the great thing, even if you are the best, most compelling, most amazing salesperson in the world for your law firm, on your best day, you are not the best salesperson for your law firm on your worst day. And you're definitely not the best salesperson for your law firm on your day off. And you're definitely not the best salesperson for your law firm when you're actually on a vacation with your family. So what we want to do is we want to build a business that has consistent, predictable, reliable income for you and your family and your staff. And to do that, we have to have people who are doing this critical role, this is all they do. Day in and day out, week in and week out. You're in trial, there's still someone meeting with prospective new clients. Day in and day out, you are at a mediation, there's still someone meeting with prospective new clients. Day in and day out, you're off working on improving your processes and your systems and your procedures and re-engineering your policies to make your business run better. Still someone sitting there meeting with prospective new clients. Your kid gets sick, still someone meeting with prospective new clients. You've got to build a machine to work for you. Otherwise, you end up dragging things around on your own back.
I think that it's so freaking important. I think one of the other elements that is highly missed, like very, very, very often, is the context switching of I'm going to do this legal document or this process for a little bit. Then I'm going to do an hour-long sales consult. Then I got to go do this. The simple amount of time that it takes for your brain to readapt and then get into the next task, whatever it is, you're probably wasting hours of your day by doing so many of these different tasks and context switching that doesn't make you efficient, but also doesn't set the practice up for success. So if we eliminate the context switching, we have someone in the practice that's a non-attorney salesperson that's there, and we're on board. We're bought into the idea of it. How do we start getting that? Go ahead.
I just want to make sure that everyone's clear. The non-attorney salesperson is having the prospective new client sign an engagement agreement, which is subject to review and approval by the owner of the law firm. If you go and try to hire a big law firm, any of the biggest law firms in the country, you will not be able to engage that firm without a committee reviewing and approving the engagement. Subject to review and approval is standard practice amongst the best run law firms in the world. This is not a new, novel, crazy idea that no one's ever tried before. This is how professionally run law firms have been run for decades. So having a non-attorney salesperson sign an engagement agreement with a prospective new client and say, listen, this is subject to the review of the owners or management of the law firm. Not only is that professional, but it actually positions you even better.
100%. So if we like the idea, we want to move forward with it. Having someone that's unique ability, their unique skill set too, also helps. Whether it's the best day or worst day. How do we start bringing that person up to speed in the practice? By understanding the systems, the processes, the services, how things are delivered, the timelines, the time frames, all of these elements. How do we get that salesperson up to speed when it comes to these elements?
All right. So first of all, the salesperson doesn't need to know about the law, right? They need to know about the solutions that the law firm
can bring
to bear, right? And so now let me just separate things into two different categories, okay? If you have a really skilled, really experienced salesperson, and you, the owner of the firm, management of the firm, has done a really, really good job of standardizing and systematizing your offerings, yeah, then the salesperson can help the prospective new client choose large, medium, small. What are we choosing from the menu of services that the law firm offers? Got it?
Yep.
But there's another approach, and it's a much simpler approach, and it's a much better approach to take if you're just dipping your foot into this and working with a salesperson who maybe doesn't have as much experience. And that is, what they're selling is a strategy session, right? So the sales call gets to the point where you're making a decision what to do next, and you're saying, look, I think we can help you with this. We might be able to help you with that. We usually help clients like this other thing, but here's what I'd like to suggest as a next step. Let me get you set up with a strategy session to meet with attorney so-and-so, right? And attorney so-and-so will arrive to that strategy session. He or she or they'll already be familiar with your file. They'll already be familiar with your case. They'll do some research ahead of time, and they will arrive and present you with some options for you to choose from. And if at the end of that strategy session, you decide to take us up on one of those options, we will be happy to take the engagement from you and represent you. But if at the end of that strategy session you don't want to engage our services, that's okay. At least you walk away with a strategy that you can either try to do on your own, or you can even bring the strategy to another law firm and let them implement it for you. The strategy session is a much easier sale to make. Now, some people say that the strategy session, that the fee for the strategy session will be applied towards the engagement. That's one way to do it, not necessarily the only way to do it. Some people say that the strategy session comes with 100% money back guarantee. I prefer butter pecan ice cream with coconut shavings mixed into the butter pecan ice cream. And therefore, for that reason, I like to offer strategy sessions with 100% money back guarantee. What's your favorite flavor of ice cream, Dre?
Chocolate peanut butter.
In that case, you should go with the strategy where you say that the fee for the strategy session will be applied to the engagement. But because I like butter pecan ice cream with coconut, which is clearly a better choice, I prefer, if they're all paying attention, right?
Yeah.
This is just, you try it, right? I like the 100% money back guarantee. To me, it's more consistent with building a long-term relationship, and say, look, the strategy session is $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, whatever dollars. But if you come to the end of the strategy session and you don't feel like you got your money's worth, if you don't feel good about it, you just let us know and we'll give you a refund on the spot. You got nothing to lose. Give it a try. It's a much lower barrier to entry, a much easier sale to make. And the truth of the matter is, if I don't deliver value in that strategy session, I don't want your $1,000. I'm not getting rich off your $1,000. I'm not in it for your $1,000 strategy session fee, right?
There's probably a certain amount of obviously we're reducing the fear, the anxiety, the uncertainty, the doubt that someone may have working with you, because we're really make it a no-brainer decision by doing something like that. From your experience, how many people of all of the law firms that you work with take people up on the money back guarantee?
How often do the prospective new clients say, I want my money back?
Yes, because I know that's probably an issue that some people have.
Yeah, so infrequently that I can't even remember the last time someone told me that.
Yeah, I think
and you got to kind of figure, you got to kind of figure you dodged a bullet there, right? Like, I couldn't deliver enough value to you in a strategy session, an hour or a 90-minute strategy session where I arrived prepared to earn $1,000 of the money you paid. Really? Well, there's clearly no way I'm ever going to make you happy.
Yeah, it's a lose-lose at that point. By bringing them on, or by going any further down.
But I mean, it's like we have hundreds of lawyers, hundreds of law firms using this approach, and I can't remember the last time anyone told me that someone took them up on the strategy session. I took them up on the money back guarantee.
Yep. Yeah, it's just a great risk reversal. But from our side too, from all the experience we have on the marketing side of things, just people don't take advantage of it. But it definitely increases the likelihood that they will move forward with that next step to take that next decision or decisive action in some form or fashion.
Let me say one thing that you didn't ask me that lawyers always ask me when we teach this.
Yeah.
Which is, wait a second, Arjan, you're saying that my non-attorney salesperson is going to have a sales call with this person for 30 minutes or an hour or however long it's going to be. Then they're going to get $1,000, I'm making it up, $2,000, whatever, $1,000 strategy session fee. Then I'm going to do 30 minutes of research and preparation and get myself ready. And then I'm going to go meet with a prospective new client for like an hour. And, and you're saying that they could ask for their money back. Yeah, but I mean, that's like a red hot, on fire with a red flag on top of it, flaming hot prospect you're meeting with. it doesn't feel bad when you're meeting with that kind of a prospect, right? Because that person isn't technically a prospect at that point. They're technically a client. They just engage you for a limited engagement, which is a strategy session.
Yep. It's a completely different shift. We're at the top of the hour. I know we've got a few questions that have been submitted. If you have any other questions around this, submit them. Because Arjan's got to run off to his event here soon too. First question from Richard is: does this apply? I know what the answer is already. Does this apply to a $600,000 firm and supporting the cost of a salesperson?
I think what Richard is asking is, can a $600,000 firm justify the expense of having the non-attorney salesperson?
Yes.
Definitely yes.
Yeah.
If your pricing, if your fees are properly structured, right? If your gross profit margins on the fee, if you know your cost of goods sold on your fee, and you've got a gross profit margin of at least 50%, which it should be in most law firms, and your salesperson has at least a 1 out of 3 conversion rate, the numbers will almost definitely work out for you.
What the next question here that sort of builds on that is, how do you compensate one of these salespeople?
Right. So bar rules almost everywhere in the country prohibit lawyers or law firms from sharing legal fees with non-attorneys. So this is not a commission-based position. It's not a performance-based, commission-based position. It's a salaried position. You can give periodic bonuses based on subjective evaluation of performance, attitude, going above and beyond, whatever. But the way that we structure it is actually, we can do a whole different webinar just on this, because it's a really fascinating subject, but here's a short version of it. Technically, what you're going to do is you're going to give them 2 different jobs, right? One job is a salaried position as a salesperson, and the other job is a position doing quality control and client communication, right? So forget about the salesperson conversation for a minute, okay? Every law firm should have this position on staff. Every law firm should have the following position on staff. Your law firm should have this position on staff. You should have someone on staff who picks up the phone and calls a new client about a week after they engage the firm, just to make sure they're getting all the emails, to make sure they've gotten their welcome package, to make sure they've been in communication with their attorney or the paralegal to see if they have any questions, just to head off buyer's remorse. Someone should pick up the phone and call a new client about a week after the engagement. It will make you a lot of money and reduce a lot of headaches in your business and protect you from a risk of bar grievances and protect you from malpractice actions if you will have someone pick up the phone and call new clients about 7 days after the engagement. Another call should take place about 30 days when they get their first bill. Someone should be picking up the phone just to make sure that the client is satisfied. Do you have any problems? Is the lawyer answering all your questions? Is everything okay? Do we have a problem we need to fix? By the way, the person making this call should not be the attorney. It should be someone who's not the attorney, right? Because the attorney is never going to call you and say, hey, listen, boss, I need to report that 25% of the clients that you assign to me feel like I'm not answering their questions, and that I'm impatient with them, and that I speak in gibberish. I mean, you got to have someone else doing this for you, right? And then I would recommend at least at the 90-day mark. If you pick up the phone, if you have someone from your firm, pick up the phone and make a quality control call, a we care about you call, this kind of a call to the new client at 7 days, 30 days, 90 days. Number one, you're going to drastically reduce the chances of a malpractice action or a bar grievance. Number two, you're going to have much more cooperative, collaborative clients who are going to pay their bills with a lot less grief. And number three, you're going to trigger a lot more referrals. This is a very, very profitable thing to do for a law firm. It's a smart thing to do for a law firm. Okay, so here's the idea. The salesperson is working part-time as a salesperson. They're getting a salary for doing the salesperson job. The salary is not based on their performance. The salary is not based on their conversion rate, right? They have another job part-time doing these quality control calls. And let's say they get $100 for the call at 90 days, and they get $100 for the call at 30 days, and they get $50 for the call at 7 days. And obviously they have a form they have to fill out, they have a report they have to turn in, and they have to turn it in within, 7 to 10 days, within 30 to 40 days, within 90 to 100 days to qualify for their fee for making these quality control calls. This is how you structure the performance. This is how you structure the compensation if you want to be really smart about it and profitable.
Love it.
And bar rules compliant.
Well, not only we're playing by the rules, but we're also ensuring that we're getting more of the referrals, happier clients across the board, a better experience both for the law practice and for the individual. It's just a win-win-win all the way around.
That practice alone that I just described I've used that to add $50,000 of revenue to a $250,000 law firm. I've used that to add $100,000 of revenue to a $500,000 law firm, hundreds of thousands of dollars to $1 million law firm. And it's just so profitable to do that. Most of what you need to do to grow your law firm isn't tech-based. It's just common sense based.
Common sense, not common practice.
That's the truth. Unfortunately, it's not common practice.
Yeah. Is there anything else as we wrap this up, Arjan, before you head back to your event that we should touch on the sales topic? Any parting words that we want to instill in everyone?
Oh man, I mean, I love sales because I love helping people get clarity about where they are and where they want to be. I love training people on sales. We run workshops on sales. We've got programs on sales. I'll share some free resources with you, Dre, that you can share with all of your clients who are interested in delving more deeply into this material. I'll just share a bunch of stuff with you. You can share with them. It's something that will really, truly lift up our entire profession.
I love it. So if you're watching this now or on the replay, if you're watching it now, we'll make sure that we will have the team send those out to you once we get them from Arjan and his crew. If you're watching this on the replay, they'll be somewhere on this page where you can download that, interact more with the How to Manage team and all of the amazing content and things that they're putting out. So with that, Arjan, it's been another fun adventure this month. Enjoyed it and appreciate it.
Maybe next month I'll do it upside down.
Let's change it up, let's keep them on their toes.
Enjoyed
it, my friend.
Great for doing this.
We'll see you next month.
Thank you, Danny's Head, for doing this.
Yep, our pleasure. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.